We have lots to discuss in today's video, including an updated trade bait board from insider Frank Seravalli. All kinds of teams will be discussed on that board today, including some players from the New York Rangers, New York Islanders, Vancouver Canucks, Buffalo Sabres, Chicago Blackhawks, Montreal Canadiens, and a few others. Plus, we have more news from the NHL waiver wire, a few injury updates, and we also have a big update as well in the man that is accused of being the drunk driver in the Johnny Gaudreau and Matthew Gaudreau case as well. All that and more coming up next. Back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here in today's video. I'll kick things off first with a big update, which is not really related to the NHL right now, but certainly, of course, we know how the hockey world, NHL, and the Gaudreau families lost both their boys in that accident this past summer in August, and the accused is still going through the case, trying to obviously get some justice for the Gaudreau family. I've seen an update today that he has pled not guilty. I'm not even going to say his name because I don't want to give him any real airtime here because of the disgusting thing that he did is accused of, and really with all the evidence we have here, sure looks like he's definitely most likely going to be found guilty. But I mean, it doesn't look good for him clearly. But he's rejected a plea deal. He was offered a plea deal. I believe it was 35 years. Like, that's pretty significant. So basically, from what I've read, it looks like in each case, of course, he killed two people here, or he's accused of killing two people in this accident, that he could be facing up to 35 years for each count. So he may never see the light of day again, which, to be honest, like I said, he was, if everything that's true that we've heard, what he's accused of, being a drunk driver, mowing down basically with his vehicle two innocent boys that lost their lives way too early. If he never gets out of jail and goes to jail for 70 plus years, obviously that's the rest of his life. That's, I think, fair. We need to see some justice in this case. It's, just still gut wrenching to think about it. I mean, it's such a horrific case. Those two boys, like I said, were killed and lost their lives way too early. The poor family, those kids, there's just so many people affected by this senseless act. I certainly hope that they get justice, and it looks like he's going to be going to jail for a long time, but it's surprising to see that he didn't take a plea deal. Obviously, he must think that there's some hope of getting a lesser sentence if found guilty, which to me is quite shocking based on what the maximum is that he could be facing. Now we have some news from the NHL waiver wire here today. The Minnesota Wild today have signed goaltender Dylan Ferguson for the remainder of the season on a 1-year, 2-way contract, and he needs waivers to remain with their AHL affiliate in Iowa. So Ferguson, of course, a little bit of a journeyman goaltender. Originally was drafted way back by Vegas, if I'm not mistaken, back I think it was 2018. I think it was the very first draft. He's bounced around quite a bit. I do wonder here if we might see a claim because there's teams looking for goaltenders. The team of the Ottawa Senators comes to mind. They're not just decimated at the NHL level, but because of what they've gone through, they've organizationally have had to bring in some other guys between AHL, ECHL. They've got a lot of injuries throughout with the uncertainty of Linus Ullmark. They do have a brief history with Ferguson before. He did appear with them last year briefly, and the appearance or two that he made was good. They just had no real room to keep him around, so there was no it wasn't a case where he was going to end up sticking around because once everybody was healthy, right? But now they're back in this predicament again. I kind of half wonder if they would do that. I don't see them making a significant trade right now, listening to all the other insider reports on where Ottawa's at with their goaltending organizationally, but this might be something. If not, he'll obviously stay with the Wild for the rest of the year. He'll go to the minors. I believe the AHL salary is like $125,000, league minimum with the NHL side, so they've had to beef up their depth at the position as well. So we'll see what happens. If he clears, he'll, just continue as he was and stay on here with the Wild and be an option for call-up if need be. And if not, he could get picked up. Time will tell. A couple of injury updates. One that sounds really bad, but thankfully he's not expected to be out for too long. The Winnipeg Jet defenseman Colin Miller got a puck to the throat the other night and has what they're calling fracture of the larynx. He's going to be out for a minimum of 2 weeks, but that has to be an incredibly painful injury. So I wouldn't wish that on anybody. The Nashville Predators, they also returned Ozzy Weisblatt, who got to make his NHL debut the other night, and Kevin Gravel back to the American Hockey League. The Rangers have recalled Matt Rempe after just going to the minors a day or two ago. And in Ottawa, we got an update on Jacob Bernard-Docker, who has had a hard fall in practice yesterday. They're calling it a high ankle sprain. He'll be out for 5 to 7 weeks. I mean, those high ankle sprains are harder to recover from than a broken bone. You'd almost rather break your leg, to be honest. You're going to be back feeling normal and healed faster than you are from one of these things. It's an incredibly tough injury to return from. I know, like Drake Batherson, his teammate, had one, I think it was 2 years back. And, again, they said, around 6 weeks or so, which is, I think, 6-7 weeks is what he was out. Similar timelines, came back. Yeah, he played, but you could tell that he wasn't quite himself. And it wasn't until the rest of the year went by, until the beginning of the next season, when he finally looked normal again. It can really drag on before that ankle fully recover. So for JBD, who just saw an injury to Travis Hamonic, a window open for him to get back into the lineup and gain a regular spot for the next month, and then just like that, a bad fall in practice, gone. So they've recalled Max Gannett. They've got a number of young defensemen up now. So between the goaltending injuries and the D injuries, they better start scoring some more goals, or they're going to be in deep trouble, as the rest of the Eastern Conference have caught up to them in the playoff spot. They now fall just below technically by win percentage, they're still in, but a couple of teams have passed them in points, only by like 1 or 2 at most, but so they're still right there, like I said, and they've played fewer games. So if they win those games, they're good, but if they don't, they're going to start to fall behind. So they got to end the streak and get playing some better hockey here. Big milestone in Washington. A longtime defenseman, John Carlsson, became the first defenseman ever in Capitals history to achieve 700 points recently. So congrats to John Carlsson on a long, very successful career. We've talked lots about trade rumors here in recent days, and we're going to talk about a new updated trade bait board to put out by Daily Faceoff's Frank Seravalli today on all the names that he's watching. But one deal that we've discussed a lot heavily in the last couple of weeks have been all the stuff and drama going on in Vancouver. Athletic writer Josh Yeo, or I'm not sure if he pronounced it Yo or Yo. Yeah, I was concerned I'm going to say it wrong, but if you follow Pittsburgh media, I'm sure you know who I'm referring to. Anyways, he's one of the beat writers for the Penguins for the Athletic. He says that in his latest article that league sources have told him that the Rangers, of course we know because we've heard it from multiple people, that there had to be something to it. The Rangers have been circling and trying to figure out a way to make a deal with Vancouver about getting JT Miller back. He's reporting that the Rangers offered Mika Zibanejad up straight up for JT. And that's a deal that we've discussed. We've heard the rumor mill. From what he's saying, it was a legit offer. So clearly goes to show, like I said before, a lot of the rumors we talk about here, some of them have more truth to them than others. Some of them are, sometimes it's a little bit of misinformation out there. Not everything's completely accurate. That's why we talk about things just for the fun of it and the what if scenarios and what if this happened, what if that happened. That's just obviously can change the game, change teams, and which is why we discuss them. But there are times when a lot of these rumors are legit being discussed. But again, if the deals don't get consummated and they're not, done deal, a lot of people may never know unless somebody gets the intel and actually spills the beans later on. So Zibanejad for Miller has been offered. The Canucks rejected this deal. So I know there's been Canuck fans that we've commented several times on the channel saying, geez, if the Canucks traded Miller, we wouldn't want Zibanejad in return. If that's how you feel, you don't have to worry about it. They've already said no to that. The belief is that they'd have to come back with an offer of Alexis Lafreniere for it to gain any traction. We'll see if it does or if it doesn't. I don't know if the Rangers really want to do that either, so we may not really see anything after all. It really boils down to what the Canucks decide to do here. Now, the other details that he discusses in his article is mostly Penguin stuff, but he does touch on that. He talks about the fact of what he thinks right now the Penguins' deadline deals are going to be and what they're likely going to do here over the next 6 weeks or so before those decisions have to be made. Talks about Marcus Pettersson, Rickard Rakell being the two main names out there. Marcus Pettersson's on an expiring contract, hasn't had his best hockey this year, and contract talks haven't reportedly gone well either. So that's why there's a heavy belief that Pettersson, regardless of where the Penguins are at in the standings, has a good chance of being traded because of his contract and how everything has gone. Now, early in the season, there was time that Kyle Dubas didn't want to trade him right away. They wanted to see how it went and maybe discuss negotiations on a new deal. Things haven't materialized. So again, no guarantee he gets moved, of course, like anybody, but things are falling in line where it's looking more and more likely. But in the case of Rickard Rakell, there's definitely some interest around the league in this player. But again, it's really going to boil down to where they're at in the standings. Now, he's not an expiring contract. He has a couple of years left on his term. So again, like he says in the article, imagine, going to Crosby and Malkin on the deadline eve and saying, I know we're right in the mix. We're either in a spot or we're within 2 points or whatever, but I'm going to take one of your best wingers away and we're going to move them for futures. Like, imagine that. Like, that's not going to be an easy conversation to be had with those superstars. So I don't see that happening. Like I said, unless a deal comes up where they magically think the team gets better in the short term, which is just hard to imagine. Deadline deals are largely future-based deals for the most part. The big blockbusters, hockey trades, tend to happen more in the summer. You do get some throughout the year, but anyway, so we'll see. At the end of the day, the Penguins, their decisions are going to largely be made on obviously where they're at in the standings and whether or not they have a shot at playoffs. But Marcus Pettersson is the most likely player to be moved out there. Now, on Frank Seravalli's new updated trade bait board, number 1 is Islanders centerman Brock Nelson. Now, Brock Nelson's not having his, as good a year as he typically has had. His production is down a bit. The Islanders have struggled to score. Certainly plays a role in it. It's not all on him, but of course, to him as well as like many others have not had a great season. He's got, I think, 10 goals where he's typically been a pretty consistent 30-goal guy. So, now he's on pace more closer to 20, which is still decent. And on a contending team, if he plays lower in the lineup, that might not be such a big deal. But when you're expected to be consistent top 6, top line, yeah, that's not going to cut it. Your team is not going to have a lot of success when that's getting done. But he says for Brock Nelson, he feels it's just the right time that the Islanders need to move on from some of these veterans and retool. And that Nelson is not the only Islander on the list, but he is number 1. He also has Kyle Palmieri and Jean-Gabriel Pageau on this list as well. Palmieri is a little higher than Pageau. Both are expiring contracts. He mentions the Minnesota Wild as being a good landing spot with Nelson, referencing the fact, which makes a ton of sense here, that GM Bill Guerin, we know he is the GM for Team USA for the Four Nation Faceoff. He picked Brock Nelson to be on that team, even though he's having a down year. Clearly, that shows Guerin believes in him and is fond of him, and wouldn't be shocking to see him if he's going to put him on that team to bring him to his league team as well. The Canucks, plus it's Brock Nelson's home state, he'd probably be happy to go there. So we'll see how that works out. When it comes to Palmieri, we've seen some talk about a reunion with the Devils where he used to play before, but there's going to be a number of teams that are probably interested to some degree. But the goal here, according to some, is that they're looking for first-round picks for both of those guys. That might be a tough sell based on their production, but that's the asking price now. But the asking prices well out are usually always sky high. They will come down to earth as we get closer to the deadline if teams aren't willing to pay. Yanni Gourde is number 2, so a great, number 3 center. We've heard that there might be some chance he re-signs in Seattle, but that's looking less likely, but you never know. Can't rule it out completely. He previously has been linked to the Maple Leafs. Taylor Hall's number 3, another veteran guy that had expressed some desire to stay in Chicago, but considering he was a healthy scratch earlier this year and where things are at with his own personal game, I don't know that it makes a ton of sense on the Blackhawks' part to bring him back. It would have to be far less money. He may not want to do that. I would think he would want to have chase down a chance to win before it's all said and done. It's getting to the latter years of his career. He is, regressing a bit. So we'll see where Taylor Hall goes, but it is expected he'll be on the move. Ryan Lindgren leads the top Ranger name, number 4 on the list, but they also have Will Borgen, Zach Jones, and Keandre Miller all on this list. So 4 defensemen. So clear to say that Seravalli's making it known from his intel that they definitely want to continue retooling that blue line, and it's probably going to look a lot different next year. We know Miller has had his struggles. Probably the player there with the highest upside in terms of offense. Ryan Lindgren's a warrior, battler, shot blocker, penalty killer. I'm sure that there's teams out there that would like to make a cup run that would see value in him. He's also pending UFA as well. So was Borgen, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Jones has been a healthy scratch for 6 games. When they acquired Vakanainen in the Trouba deal, it kind of bumped Jones out, and he can't seem to get in the lineup. We know he's frustrated. He has spoken out here recently. A couple of prominent Sabres make their name on the list. Dylan Cousins leads the way at number 5. Seravalli says that essentially, they're having trouble figuring out which Dylan Cousins is the real deal. We know he's had, what was he at? I think he was high 60 points a couple years back, 67, 68 points. Then he's been down more like a 40-point player the past couple of years. So, which version of him is legit? Can he get back to being a 65, 70-point player? You sign a long-term deal over $7.1 million. It's one of those cases where his value is down. They don't want to sell low, but if he starts playing better and they see that coming back, do they really want to move him? They're going to have to tread carefully. We've seen the Sabres move a lot of young talent to go on and have a lot of success elsewhere, and they don't want to see that happen again. Bo Byram's listed being a pending restricted free agent. Jack Quinn's also listed as a young player that could maybe benefit from a fresh start as well. Obviously, we'll see. We've heard about the deals about Elias Pettersson. Now, Pettersson's number 25 on the list. He's dead last. It's a 25-player list. I think basically that, Seravalli is acknowledging that between he and Miller, there's a real possibility that the Canucks make a move, but it's going to have to be a significant deal that they can't refuse to make it happen now during the season. So while it's possible, it's going to take something big, and that just seems more challenging and a little bit less likely that we see it. But the Sabres are one of the teams that have been linked to him. And if they come forth with a deal, it's believed that they had previously discussed Cousins and Byram maybe being a combo, but something that maybe Buffalo would have to change that to be Owen Power being in the deal instead of Byram. So I don't know. We'll see. Obviously, I think the Sabres could benefit from a little bit of a retooling on the back end as well. Their decor has not been as good as it needs to be. Joel Farabee is number 6 on this list. He lists another player that's fairly young in his mid-20s, needing a fresh start. I wonder about the Ottawa Senators in this case. We know that the Flyers and the Sens have had a lot of discussions over the past year. In my opinion, Ottawa could definitely use another top 6 forward. They've used Adam Gaudette there kind of sparingly. They've used Ridley Gregg there sparingly. They've both had their moments where they've been good. I'm not sure either guy is ready to solidify and be a regular top 6 player. If they can be more, third and fourth line players for right now, that would make them a deeper team. Farabee would probably fit well with that young, mostly American core group of players, Brady and Pinto and Norris and, Sanderson. He would know all these guys, similar age. They probably played at the lower levels together. So, Farabee might be a good fit there. I'm not sure what the asking price is going to be. That might be a tough one that they may not want to do. But I can see the connection in Montreal. We know Jake Evans is, to some degree, having contract extension talks, depending on who you ask. There's some that believe that there's only mutual interest to talk about a contract, and some say that they've had some talks. Either way, regardless if they've had some talks or not, like I said yesterday on Evans, to me, there's a chance he signs and stays because there is some interest on both sides, but it's going to boil down to negotiations. He's going to be looking for a big raise. He's having a career season, and I just don't think that the Canadiens should pay full value here. I think if they can get him on a really good deal that they like and fit, maybe they keep him. But if he's looking for too much, you have other players like Kapanen and Beck, etc., coming looking for roster spots. You're going to block them out of one if you extend him for 4 or 5 years or whatever they're looking at. So, to me, it's not a given he gets moved, but it's going to boil down to those negotiations. Josh Anderson's name is also on here. A couple years back, there was tons of interest in this player. Montreal held on to him. They didn't want to move him. His value is much lower now. Now it would be more about creating an opportunity for the future, for roster flexibility, cap flexibility. I don't know that there's a ton of interest in Josh Anderson. I'm a little surprised he made Seravalli's top board here in the top 20, but he is there. There's definitely reason to think that he could get moved, but to me, I don't know if the value is there. They're going to get an offer that makes sense for both sides. We'll have to wait and see, of course, where everything goes. But lots of new names, on some of them kind of, in different order here, I guess, as far as relevance and how likely they are to get moved. But it sounds like the New York Islanders are going to definitely be a key team to watch. I'd watch the Rangers and the Sabres for sure. I know Seravalli talking about the Rangers saying He doesn't think their position in the standings is going to be too detrimental to them making a move. Even if they win a few games, they get a little closer. I think they've seen enough from this group that there's things they don't like, and if they can find ways to retool on the fly, that they're probably going to do it anyway. Especially with some of these players that might be on shorter-term expiring deals. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, lots of names out there. We'll see where things go. Lots of time yet before the deadline, but an interesting updated trade bait board. Let me know your thoughts, especially on the rejected deal between the Canucks and Rangers. Let me know your thoughts on that and everything else in the comments. We'll talk further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date on all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.